I can hardly contain my excitement about this 200th episode. And I want to share why I started the Pursue Your Spark podcast. I have a brick and mortar studio here in Maryland where I work with men and women in midlife, teaching them Pilates, nutrition, and also mindset strategies for their midlife. And it's a cute little boutique studio. It's just me, nobody else. I don't have any staff. And I was seeing people 5 days a week. And everybody seemed to want the 8 a.m. slot. And of course, there's only one a day where you can fit somebody in. So I felt like I was missing out helping others that couldn't fit into the 8 a.m. slot on Monday through Friday. So I decided to create an online brand. And when you think about starting a new brand that is totally outside your comfort zone, I only know brick and mortar studios, and I never done an online coaching program. It was a lot to learn. And then on top of that, I added the podcast. It was a lot of excitement, a lot of heart palpitations, and dare I say, a lot of wine that my husband said, calm down, have a glass of wine, you can do this. But so my first brand name was called Clear the Clutter, also very similar to my very first episode. But over the years, the name has gone through several changes. It went from Clear the Clutter to Menopause Game Plan, and now to Pursue Your Spark, also the name of the podcast. But each time I changed my brand name, I also got clearer on who I wanted to serve, who I wanted to reach, the person that would most benefit from my over 35 years experience as a fitness, nutrition, and mindset coach with 20 years of Pilates coaching, and on and on. And I wanted to reach the woman that was exactly in my phase of life, and that is midlife. So when I started or got ready to start my first episode, it was quite peculiar. The first episode was also called Clutter Buster. Please laugh. I am a very orderly person. I love to organize. I like things to be in their place, and it bothers me when they're not, because when I look for something and they're not in their place, their respective place, then I get a little flustered because I like organization. So I had just learned to create a podcast. I discovered which publishing platforms I needed, what accounts I needed to open, and how to actually publish an episode and get it live out on the ether. Now it was time to create the content and publish my first episode. Well, we had just moved to our new house, and I sat in my basement and went through the boxes and boxes of pictures, trinkets, and all kinds of things that one might collect over the years. Now, I'm not much of a collector, but still, things start to accumulate. So I started recording my very first episode on my iPhone in the basement, reminiscing about the items I was holding in my hands and the experiences that each item brought to me, to the table, to my past. And I had to decide whether I let go of some of them or I wanted to keep them. Memories, feelings, and experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it was time to let go. And I'm just going to tell you, I had a really, really hard breakup when I was in my mid-30s. So I was dumped by somebody I was deeply in love with. And as I went through that stuff, I had hidden some of his pictures behind other pictures just in case. I don't know why, but just in case we might get together again or he discovers the love for me. So it was a really, really difficult time. I looked at this picture and I said, you need to go. I have the most amazing husband now, and your picture and your memories have no place in this life. So I put him through the shredder. And among other things, the things that my kids were part of. So it was a very emotional episode, and many of you loved the episode because it was so heartfelt, and it really was and still is. And it was so compelling. But I was looking on Apple, but you can't find it in the directory. But I will put a link in the show notes because it's still on my Pursue Your Spark podcast. And you can check it out there. And with that, Pursue Your Spark was born. And I love creating content. Now, what topics did I start with? I really didn't know, other than what my clients told me during our sessions, what they needed help with in their fitness, nutrition, and their mindset strategies. Some were talking about breaking up with a boyfriend. Others had work trouble. Others, family trouble, not getting along with relatives, and all kinds of things. So I thought this would be a great start to let my listeners know that they're not alone in their journey. There are so many of us that experience very similar scenarios and moments, and sharing those will transform their feelings. And I can literally reach out deep into your heart and say, you know what? You didn't screw up because you ate that whole pumpkin pie. It was not the smartest thing you did, but that doesn't mean your diet goes now down the dumpster and you will gain weight and you will be unhappy and you get you have to now go on a sugar buster diet, which of course I'm totally against. But the idea started forming in my head. So what is a girl to do? I invited my best friends on the show. So my very first guest, and I recorded her in my living room, again with my phone, set up the phone, and we actually did a little video of that as well. And she is my friend Patricia, I should say who she is, Patricia Scott. She's a very accomplished ultra marathon runner. And she was all too happy helping me out with a story on how to become an ultra marathon runner. I didn't know if people would resonate with this episode, but I was a runner back then, so I thought, heck, people will love hearing running stories. And she's from France, so she has a cute, adorable French accent. But we had the best time. And she said, I've never been on a podcast. And I said, well, great, because you're my first guest. Then next up was my late friend, Debbie Jardo, who was a chef who made delicious meals in a food truck. We even videoed her making pasta in her food truck, and she shared her story about how to cook in a food truck, how to make a delicious meal. And I thought, great, I have another nutrition one down. And then it was all about beauty. Then my friend Ida Slaughter microbladed my eyebrows. So if you watch the video and you've seen my pictures, these are not all my real eyebrows, they're microbladed. And during our microblading session, I said, do you want to be on my podcast? And I recorded her. So you can find her at Maryland Microblading, and I highly recommend her services. So that's how I got started. I didn't know any better, and I trusted my friends, and I trusted the process. And I said, I can only get better at creating episodes and learning from you. So out of all the episodes up to episode 200, the ones I couldn't really pick one myself that I said, oh, this was the best one. Oh, I really loved that one. There was so much amazing content that my guests shared and what I thought myself shared with you that is really hard to pick one because they're all amazing. So let's start with the ones that you liked the best, that you showed me by listening to them, that you downloaded, that you listened to almost the end. So it was episode 196, How to Reclaim Your Health and Thrive in Midlife, one of my recent episodes. Number 194, Why Regular Exercise Can Be the Key to Long-Term Financial Stability, was another hit that you just loved. And then number 192, The Step-by-Step Guide to Staying Fit and Having a Healthy Menopause. Again, you hit it out of the ballpark. And now on to three of my guests. The three that you really loved were number 181, 4 Steps to Achieve Any Goal, No Matter Your Age. And we featured Deirdre Wolovnik-Honold, an accomplished rock climber. and you may know her son under the name Honnold. But we had her on the show. And 158 was why you're not losing weight after menopause, insulin resistance. And Dr. Morgan Nolte shared so much knowledge about this topic. And then in 138, the truth behind cortisol and weight gain for over 50s, my friend Cassie Christopher. So these are the three in each category that you just loved. So I'll keep that in mind going forward. When I started recording episodes or invited guests, I thought about the topic that would come up during my training sessions, as I thought, and with especially with my in-person clients, whether they're on Zoom or they're in person. To me, they're all in person. What are the conversations that I have with my client that I can turn into an episode for you, the listeners, that you would love and share with others? We now have over 80,000 overall downloads and listeners worldwide, as far-reaching as Australia, New Zealand, Philippines, Mexico, Japan, Singapore, among many other countries. Over time, I focused into Pilates and strength training, intermittent fasting, and focusing more on mindset strategies where you're stuck, where you need to feel you want to move on, where you need help with the struggles that you have that have nothing to do with exercise or eating. And when we're talking about what holds us back in midlife, and we thrive and we lead a vibrant midlife, and letting go of what no longer serves us helps me find solutions that help you to thrive. And so it goes back actually to episode number 1, the Clutterbuster. Clear your mind, letting go of what no longer serves you. Now, recently, I put out a Pursue Your Spark podcast feedback form, and so many of you participated. I love, for number 1, the encouraging messages on the Apple podcast that you're sharing with me, where listeners can rate the show. And if you haven't, please rate the show and write a review. It is vitally important to get this feedback so I can curate a show that resonates with you, the listener. Your feedback helps grow the show because it's more aligned with what you want, and I can reach many more women in midlife and help them with their struggles. So thanks again for everybody who participated in the podcast feedback I sent recently, and the person who got the $50 Amazon gift card. I want to share some of the survey, the important parts of the survey results. All of it is important, but not all of it is important to you, the listener. So here we go. Most of you found the Pursue Your Spark podcast either through a friend or the Apple podcast. Hey, sharing is caring. This is great. Then most of you like a mix of topics, including Pilates, nutrition, and mindset strategies. And you told me that you prefer guest experts instead of transformational stories on the show. Now, the transformational stories that you watched the most also had a very actionable plan attached to it, or action steps that, for instance, our rock climber said, yeah, here, a rock climb, many would say, I don't want to rock climb. But she told us how she got stronger, how she got over her own mindset that held her back was the fear of heights. So there were action steps as well as a story of transformation. And then I found out you stopped listening to most episodes around the 50% mark. You enjoy the quality of the show and me as the host. Yay, thank you. I keep working on myself, getting better with each episode. But you were not so sure about the music on the show. Most of you would share the episode with family and friends, and I want to boost that by quite a bit. I want you to be just wanting to share the episode everywhere. And finally, the one thing that most of you can't live without is, coffee. It was interesting because we had the pets, we had a quiet moment, but the coffee won hands down. So thank you for also for sharing topics you like more to hear more about regarding health and mindset strategies for women in midlife. You will find them in future episodes. I also love the questions you asked me personally, and I'll address all of those through other episodes. It's not about me, it's about you. So the topics you shared, you will find also in future episodes as an episode. For today, I want to answer the question of Anne Hagen, a random gift card winner. She wanted to know if I faced any challenges or obstacles in my career and how I dealt with them. Boy, did I face many obstacles. I didn't even know where to start. From a woman perspective, we still are underpaid and undervalued in the fitness industry. We are more valued by how cute we look, how our body are toned, and how great our smile is, I guess, but not by the quality we bring to the job, and many of us did. And then there was one moment where I wanted to open my own studio aside from the studio I have now, and I just wouldn't get a loan. It was impossible for me to get a loan as a woman. But when I really think about it, the biggest challenge, career challenge, also is connected with my personal life. And that is when I first got divorced, life handed me a pretty tough deck of cards. So picture this. I decided to get divorced. I have kids that at this point are 3 and 5 or 5 and 8. I'm not 3 and 7. Let me correct myself. 3 and 7. And I decided I'm going to go all out. I'm getting divorced and I can do this. Now, at this point, I pulled in $300 a month teaching aerobics classes. And my ex-husband was suing me and demanding alimony for me instead of him. He was an attorney, and he pulled in way more money than I did. But that's how it goes in a divorce. So I decided I will find a full-time job. I will stop teaching those classes as soon as I found a full-time job. Not an easy feat, because at this time I had to pay the rent. I had to pay for gas. I had to pay food. But I've always been a fighter. I'm the person who never gives up. I'm going down the rabbit hole, and I'm going for that rabbit hole. But thanks to a generous friend who kept inviting us over for meals, she was really amazing. And my relentless search for a stable job with fitness, I finally landed a position at a club here in Maryland, which I held for 8 years. My son, now a dad himself, asked me once, "Mom, how did you did all this with nothing?" And my simple answer was perseverance. I never gave up on what I wanted for my family and ultimately for myself and my career. Never gave up. I knew there was a light at the end of the tunnel, one way or another, and I would figure it out. It took a while, but I figured it out. Now, as always, I have action steps. As you know, I'm all about taking action, and you'll see some subtle changes on the podcast over the coming months. So I'm not going to do it all at once. Nope, a little bit at a time. Your feedback was super valuable. So what will I tackle over the next couple of months? You'll see more guest experts on the show sharing their knowledge to help you thrive in midlife. And mentioned before, if there's a transformational story, I will make sure that they include action steps, or unfortunately, they will not be on the show. I'll also shorten each episode. Please, I will try. I love to talk and I love to ask my guests questions, but I will do my darnest to shorten the episodes so you will get to each end of the episode. I also picked new music for the show, which will air soon. The content I create for the show will stay varied, but strongly focused on mindset strategies, on the letting go, on the moving forward of how do I do this. And it's as simple as that. If you're telling me that you can't eat healthy because of reasons, those reasons we will dive into, as well as what other strategies you can do. But why can't you eat healthy? So that's an example of the mindset. And the topics you were interested, as I mentioned earlier, you'll be hearing from, and they will take front and center in the episodes that I will record either myself or with the guests that I'll invite on the show. Diversity will also take front and center. So our guests will come from all backgrounds and cultures. I also want to make our content so good that you'll never listen to another midlife podcast again. The Pursue Your Spark podcast will be your one-stop shop for all things midlife. Thank you for your feedback and playing a pivotal role in the feedback form. And I already created something that I'm sharing for the very first time here on this 200th episode. We now have a separate podcast called Pilates for Women in Midlife. You can find it on my website, on Apple, and Spotify. And this is a limited series that's titled Pilates for Women in Midlife, and I dive deep into the world of Pilates. It is limited, so there's only 9 episodes, so you can learn all about the rich history of Pilates, the unique benefits, the why you should do Pilates, and whether you're new or you're a seasoned Pilates taker or exerciser, you will find this podcast limited series very valuable. So I hope that you will continue to listen and share this episode, because I love having you here on the show. So thank you, thank you, thank you. You made this possible. And I invite all of you to continue listening to the Pursue Your Spark podcast, share it far and wide, and share your thoughts about each episode. I also started something new where you respond in the subject line with the word of the episode. In this case, it could be 200 or episode 200. And then give me your thoughts, give me your feedback. Let me know how I can help you thrive in midlife. And until next time, I see you on the Pursue Your Spark podcast. Ciao.